Welcome aboard the Isabel Baggage Claim. My name is Anna Westbrook, and I'm the creator of Isabel and the Runaway Train. What we do is we seek to normalize the ability to emotionally support Me Too survivors. The way that we do this is we use musical theater and professional development. The Isabel action steps for all of our passengers, as we call our audience members, are to read books, to go to therapy, and to have candid conversations. In light of that, we are running a YouTube series called The Isabel Baggage Claim, where we analyze one word that we say and interview professionals in the advocacy and mental health world to ask about when to say it. Today, aboard the Isabel Baggage Claim, we are asking the question, when do we say motioning for editing later? There's something in here. Survivor. Off we go to our interview. Oh, here we are. Hello, JRock. How are you doing?
Hello, Anna Westbrook. I am grateful. Thanks for asking.
Glad to hear it. I'm grateful that you are here with us on our little train ride, and I'd love for you to introduce yourself to our audience first, to share who you are and where you work.
Sure. Well, I'm JRock or Janice Rockman, whichever you remember or prefer. And I work as a media correspondent, journalist, and neuropsychotherapist LPC. And when I have a little extra free time, I like to do public policy reform to help advocate for mental health and wellness.
That's so many things, and I love that that's your use of free time, and really glad to have you here. What we decided to talk about today is the term survivor. So a couple years ago, the general kind of wellness world stopped saying victim and started saying survivor when it comes to sexual abuse, assault cases, which we all put under the umbrella term maltreatment.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when people start to help a victim or a survivor for the first time, they feel some anxiety about saying the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So we want to talk, I'm just curious what your thoughts are on when to say survivor, what else we can say, and why. So what do you think? What do you think about the change from victim to survivor?
Yeah. I sit on the leadership roundtable here in Texas for Governor Abbott's policy task reform through TASA, which is just incredible work for both men and women and people of all backgrounds who have been affected by assaults, abuse, and specifically sexual assault. And I think that the terms can be used interchangeably. I think that it is a good thing that we have evolved into thinking about how we use them and why. And I think that the term victim certainly it removes a bit of an aspect of ownership or power around what has happened, but it also in a way removes shame or responsibility for what has happened, if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
So a lot of times people will say, like, what could I have done differently? What could I have said differently? How could I have helped out my friend who had been assaulted? And when we understand that a person has been victimized by something, we very much understand and get that they were a part of a set of multiple circumstances and situations that led to a moment that was completely out of their control. Once we've identified that as a baseline to begin the recovery and the healing process, I think we can begin to sort of shift into survivor because now they're still here standing. Maybe not intact in the way that they had been before, and perhaps their lives and who they are might turn out to be quite different than who they were before these kinds of incidents have occurred. However, the survivor part, I think, also lends itself to a term of empowerment that you have overcome something, and there's something about it's almost like an honor. It's almost like an honor accolade that comes with the survivor. And you've heard that, like survivors of war, survivors of terror, survivors of disaster. It's kind of like, wow, you have weathered something that could have been lethal to another person and has been. So that's how I see the two different terms playing out, and almost like on a path of wellness and recovery, acknowledging the victim space and then starting to move forward from that and seeing what survivor looks like, and hopefully from surviving to thriving.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
you're welcome.
That tracks with my personal experience and with the experience of other
Mhm.
people. So right now,
Mm.
10 years into my healing process, I would say, and I would say the start of my healing process was when I first got a therapist, which was about
Mm.
when I was 19 or 20.
Yeah.
I say survivor. I say I'm a survivor. But when I first identified as a victim, it actually was 2 years after I started
Mm.
going to therapy,
Wow.
or maybe a year after. It wasn't, I got the help and then I started to use the label.
Yeah.
I said victim. And it was really important to use the word victim
Yeah.
because I needed to grieve, especially because between the last time that I was harmed and when I got to that therapist was a good 7 year
Mhm.
period.
Mhm.
So much time saying nothing happened to me. This isn't that bad. This isn't what it was. Something's just wrong with me.
Minimalizing.
So
Mhm. Mhm.
that's a lot to hear you saying you have to acknowledge that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Since now, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because in order for us to determine where we would rather go, we first have to be able to accept, honor, acknowledge, embrace, and own where we are.
Mm,
And sometimes I think when we skip the process or we skip steps in our healing, um, we also inhibit the full healing process because we're wanting to rush to the next step. And it's just like if you go into an ER, first you have triage, and then you may have to go to critical care, you may need surgery, or you may need follow-up care or referrals. um, it's okay to take that journey and those process and to begin to evolve in the terminology that you use to describe yourself. But most importantly, remembering, no matter who it is that's listening to this or watching this, that who you are, your who is so much bigger than what you have experienced and what you've been through. So for every label that we can assign, it's still not who you are. Who you are, I think, and I believe, is really divine. It's pure potential. And overcoming those things that we've experienced on some level or growing from them is the work that we have here on this planet.
I love that. And especially, I love looking for empathy points between
Yeah.
survivors, or for a more general term, we can say those who've experienced sexual trauma or sexual violence. So between those who've experienced sexual violence and those who have not, so many
Yeah.
of the best practices that help survive people who've experienced sexual violence is just helpful. They're just helpful for people, for
For
anyone.
humanity, right? Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good call. And I think that's, because for some reason in our global collective, as well as in this country, in the United States, the ideas around violence and ideas around sex, and having that discussion, although it's something that we interface with at some level every single day, it's like we have this sort of distancing from it. And so when you want to talk about both at one time, sexual violence, it's like, whoa, 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 pump the brakes on this train. But just because we distance ourselves from it, it doesn't make it go away. So I think that if we can lean into it and begin to have some more productive conversations around it, and as you said, just basic conversations and basic language on relating to people as a whole, I think that we'll probably see somewhat of a reduction in the incidence in sexual violence, and also better outcomes for those recovering from it, as well as for potential offenders, in all honesty, if these things can be discussed in an open forum so that we can better deal and heal.
Absolutely. So when we, as the Isabel community and as the Isabel leaders who are running these online platforms and live events, when we say survivor, that's largely because we're created by me. And we're a program that's created, one of our taglines is we're created by a survivor for supporters of survivors. So I see there will be survivors watching this video, and we welcome you, whatever term you choose. But my goal is to talk to people who have not experienced this and who want to be supportive. And
Yeah.
for those people, the question of when should you use survivor, or when should you use victim is very subjective. And when we start advocacy work, we want a quick answer so that we know that we're doing it right. But that quick answer of there's one word we use all the time,
Mhm.
it doesn't really ring true.
Right. Right. It's so true. There's a list of cognitive distortions that I often talk about in my work and in my book that I'm finishing. And one of them is all or nothing thinking. So,
Mm.
in other words, it doesn't have to be either or, it can be both and. Like a person can have been victimized by sexual assault and they can also have survived the repercussions of that and that incident itself. And so I think it's completely appropriate to say I'm not always exactly sure exactly what to say, but I will tell you that I'm here in it with you. I will tell you that I'm present, and my presence hopefully can do more and speak volumes more than anything else. And I'm so sorry that you were victimized, in this situation. And my heart goes out to you that you've had to survive this. And that's a way to use the interplay of both terms. Because more important than the trauma itself, research tells us, is the immediate response after a traumatic event occurred. So more important than the horrific trauma that someone might live through is how that community of care shows up for them. So that's why the Isabel work is so important, because the effects of trauma can be multi-generational, and studies show us that they can last up to 5 generations. So for those of you that are listening and wanting to figure out ways to be supporters, we're often wounded in community, so we heal in community. So thank you for being a part of the community to help heal.
Ooh, that is deep and insightful and helpful.
Mm,
And I want to pivot the conversation to the conversation we had on Instagram. And you are all welcome to follow. I'll put in the caption JRock's Instagram information as well as mine and the Isabel contact. JRock made a post about toxic positivity. And we started a conversation about this conversation that we knew we would have in a couple of weeks. So I think that if a person who's experienced
mhm.
violence told me I'm a victim and I said, call yourself a survivor because that's more positive. That would be an example possibly of toxic positivity. Could you talk a little
Mhm.
about that for us?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's kind of important that we start to move away from telling people what they should be thinking and should be feeling and how they should be expressing themselves. I think that model has run its course over the last something centuries or so. And so I really think that, part of what happens in trauma is that people feel that their power has been removed. I work with patients who were survivors of natural disasters, for example. So when we sit down and we start our session, instead of saying, okay, this is what we're going to do today, this is my agenda for you, and here's a bottle of water, it's like, would you like tea, coffee, or water? So that's giving them a choice, right? It's just small little things to begin to heal. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about before we start? I see your treatment planning in this way, but here are 2 options that we can delve into to begin today. So giving options. So again, you can say to a person, um, you know, how would you like me to refer to this? How would you like me to call it the incident or call it the assault or that day? Would you prefer that I didn't use that person or that organization's name? Do you prefer the term, do you prefer to be referred to in this situation as victim or survivor? And I think that takes some self-awareness on our part, though, because we have to get comfortable with our own places of discomfort in our own life to be able to sit and share space with somebody like that. And that's part of why we are toxically positive sometimes. It's like, okay, let's just brush it all away. Let's just throw a hymn on it or a scripture or a Torah passage or Quran passage or an African proverb or a positive quote from the constitutional history of this country, anything except for having this conversation. So we've got to get comfortable with that. But just know this, the goal of trauma informed care is not to stay in the trauma for the rest of your life. It's so that you can get to the good part, that you can heal in a way that's holistic. So sometimes people feel like, gosh, if we start talking about this, they're going to identify and that's all they're going to want to do and that's forever and ever. Grief is a process. And when the earth is cleansing itself in the winter months, we're not like, hurry up with the winter. We let it do its thing so that it can rebalance. It's the same way for survivors and victims that are healing. And for those that are supporting, and get that you might be vicariously traumatized just by talking about these things. I get it. And it may bring up your own stuff. And great. It's another invitation for you to delve into more healing and more authenticity, and to reach out maybe for your own support.
Definitely. You have this great ability to list off all of, you just listed like 10 good things that we use defensively or to cover up something. And I feel like you covered every possible thing that could be
Good.
in a way. And I'm so impressed by that. And
Thank you.
that will resonate with a lot of our supporters.
Thank you.
Definitely. And I think that when I say that I'm talking to supporters of survivors, I think everyone is a supporter of a survivor. Just some of them don't know, and some of them are doing it poorly.
Yeah.
So we do use a lot of verbiage welcoming people to a community, saying become a supporter. But really, I just want to scream, you're all doing this badly, but you're still doing it. Because if you are providing an income, a job for a survivor, then you're being a supporter in some way. If you're related and you give them a place to live. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. It's kind of re-examining what allyship looks like. And it's okay to call RAIN, which is a national hotline, to say, look, I know someone who has been affected by sexual assault and I have no idea what to say, or to call the National Domestic Violence Hotline and talk about what are some resources or some books or some podcasts I can get, because I'm stumped here. I've been ignorant, I've been silent, but I think my silence has been harmful or re-abusive in some way. Or to go onto the Isabel Instagram, or to listen to the Isabel soundtrack, or to follow work, so we can educate ourselves. We have neuroplasticity, which means that our brain has the ability to expand and grow. And so even if you don't know, it's okay not to know. And it's okay to let go of enough ego to say, I actually don't know, but again, I'm here. Because one of the things that I think survivors fear the most is being isolated, being stigmatized, and being left behind. So just let them know you're here. And then have some corresponding action, like, check up on them every couple days, just because.
Yeah, I think that that's great advice. And that example you gave earlier, where you were role modeling, we were kind of role playing a supporter, and you used the word victim and you used the word survivor. And I believe you said, I'm sorry that you've been victimized, and I'm so glad that you survived this, or something. Am I remembering that?
Yeah, you are. Yeah, it's an interplay on both terms. It gives space for both.
That is a great litmus test for setting up for seeing how people react. Because if the person who's been harmed, they could choose to expand on one of those points, and then you could have a conversation of holding responsibility for your own words. Of, I said both of those words. Do you have a preference?
Yeah.
If they don't have a preference, then that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah. And it's okay to say, how can I be here for you right now? And if they say, I don't know, then you can ask them simple questions, like kind of Maslow's basic hierarchy of needs. Like, have you eaten today? Have you hydrated? Are you sleeping? Do you need, a safe friend to text from time to time, maybe in the evening or while you're working? You don't have anyone to reach out to. So you can offer support in different ways. And it's not up to you to help heal the person. It's up to us, I think, to walk alongside each other as we're figuring that process out. And that's kind of the beauty of humanity, that we can walk alongside each other while we're unpacking our own bags and doing our own work, and then do some of our own work in that process while we're walking alongside and supporting.
I think that's very inspiring. And now I have the song Healing in my head.
I could almost break out and sing it right now, and you know that because I've been listening to it and practicing. Yeah, what's the healing? It can happen.
Ooh, you did it.
And is it and I am not alone? And I am not alone. Yeah. It's a dope song. It's a dope song. The world needs that song right now, Anna.
I'm so glad. And that's actually the first time that I've heard your voice.
I know.
I love it.
Thank you.
And that's your half singing over Zoom voice. I can't wait to hear your
Yeah.
proper voice.
I know. Yeah, you've only heard my researcher, clinical correspondent, so on and so forth. But know that the music is another really therapeutic way. And I think, for that matter, supporters. I feel like if supporters took a moment to listen to the soundtrack, I think it would give them a lot of clues on what to do next and how to show up for folks. So, sometimes the conversation is a little difficult, but we can absorb things through music and through arts and entertainment, or edutainment, as I like to call it, in a way that might be too much for our nervous system, just in in a dialogue or in a book. So, check out the soundtrack, and what you don't understand, like, it's okay. Be okay with that. You'll get something. It's one process at a time.
Thanks. I wrote that soundtrack, and for those of you who haven't met me, I started writing those songs in 2012. So as soon as I sang I'm a victim, I was writing that music. And some of those songs took 7 years to finish, and some of them were done in a day. And I ruminated over how much it hurt to be abused over a long period of time. And I just captured it all in that music. And having other people record the songs, and then now it's online, and I don't ever have to sing any of that again if I don't want to, because it's on the internet and other people cover it, or other people were going to involve JRock in singing one of those songs in the near future. And it really is like a catharsis and a release. And I do encourage, if you would like to know how the person in your life who's been harmed might be feeling, and you don't want to harm them by asking, then you can listen to this album, because it doesn't do any harm to me. It's just pre-recorded stuff, and it's other people singing it, and
it's already out there in the world. Yeah.
It's there. And
yeah, I agree. Healing, it can happen. It can happen. So you can heal.
That's our motto. You can heal.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us for the Isabel baggage claim.
You are so welcome. Good to be here.
Definitely. Well, I'll talk to you soon, okay?
All right. Looking forward to it.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Wow. I sure learned a lot from that journey, didn't you? Okay, thanks for being aboard our train. Make sure that you check out our other pages so you can see some of our other video series that we're doing. And if you haven't listened to the Isabel album, go ahead and download it, because each of those songs is a great way to start a conversation with your community about supporting survivors. Bye. When do we say, let's see. Oh wow, this is harder to open backwards than I thought. It's gonna feel like Blue's Clues. Yeah.